We're going
Yep.
on. Hello, good afternoon. Apologize for the delay. Had some technical difficulties. I am here with a dear friend and colleague of mine, Esin. And Esin, if you'd like to introduce yourself to start for people that are here on LinkedIn. And just so you know, you can comment any comments, any questions, and we will respond throughout the stream. I'm Amanda Marino, co-founder of Next Level Recovery Associates, and I'm so blessed that I get to collaborate and work with awesome people like Esin and also develop friendships with some of them, which we have.
Absolutely.
We wanted to take the next step.
Absolutely. We started moving forward in the relationship and we were like, we're gonna pursue this.
Yes.
It's like it's like the early stages of courting each other.
We are
Um
here.
But yes, I'm Esin Pinarli. I'm a licensed clinical social worker, master certified addiction professional. I work in private practice. My company's name is Eternal Wellness Counseling, and I also work at Relationship Institute of Palm Beach on Worth Avenue. And I primarily work with individuals, couples, families. My background is I'm a trauma practitioner. I do a lot of brain spotting. Was my camera, are you able to see me? It looks like
Yeah,
okay, perfect. All right. It seemed like I was
I'm
sideways.
oh no, you're when you're back all the way, you're perfect. I'm just
Okay.
a
So,
little than you because again,
okay.
I'm in the couch setting. So
Okay.
right now I'm level.
So I'm a trauma practitioner. I primarily use internal family systems, IFS, as well as brain spotting, psychodrama in terms of families and couples. I come from a emotional focused therapy meets imago and psychodrama perspective, as well as obviously specializing in addiction, mood disorders, depression, life transitions. I also have a separate coaching company. So I could see people all over the world, which is such a gift because my whole goal was always to be of benefit. And that's why I opened private practice and to be able to help people and normalize therapy where I wanted it to kind of be fun but educational and understand that having a safe attachment is one of the most important things to navigate anything in life, whatever it may be.
Yes, and we were just on Instagram Live, and Esin and I, covered a few things that we'll recover. But one of the things we realized about ourselves is that we both kind of, come from working in the residential world, and we have, we saw things that we wanted to do better. I'll put it that way, and wanted to do
Mhm.
different. And so we, you know, have both developed like our practices, our groups, because we saw gaps missing, and I know that we started Next Level because we felt bad. We just felt like there was a lot of things missing in the treatment process, the before, during, and after. And you kind of had that experience as a therapist in treatment where you wanted to be able to do more.
I mean, yeah, and I love your company. I love, I'm so excited to get to work with you on a case or, and work together because there is a gap, it takes a village to help people. I needed a village to help me become the best version of me, the most authentic version of me. And I think the same thing with me. I felt like when I came from a treatment background, it felt like there was a lot of missing elements of things that weren't being addressed. And I get it. You have to get rid of the substances and things that you're self-medicating with to get down to it and to understand what's underneath, why you're choosing to self-medicate. But it didn't align with me. It did not align with me. And there was that missing gap. And I think that we definitely have that in common. And I love the company that you have because sometimes I need more help. I need a client or somebody who's coming to me for help, seeing me once a week and doing the work and I'm so blessed to work with a diversity of backgrounds of people with different sets of I learn from people all of the time,
It's staying an open book,
I mean, yeah, and I'll forever be a student. And so that missing gap and that piece to be able to even work with a company that you are a company that sees the missing gap. And it's really nice to have the coaching and the case management and all of that. And then I can focus exclusively on the therapeutic work.
Absolutely.
And, so I love that. I love that
It's
we come from that same mentality.
Yeah, no, and it's such a great combo because there's things that we can't provide and we need to pull other people in, and same thing with you. And it's like not about us, it's about the needs of our clients, and it's about, just helping people. Our thing is about creating lasting change within the individual, the family, and the corporation. That's kind of like our motto. We don't want to be a
Yeah.
quick or a band-aid. We don't want people to go back and forth. We want to help be the last stop, and that's
Yeah, and to create longevity, sustainability, continued care, and what else is going on that's not being addressed, and what else, and what's going to create sustainability and longevity, because
yeah,
it's not a quick fix, it's not a quick band-aid. It's like you put down the drink and the drug, and or whatever you've been self-medicating with, if it's sex addiction, or if it's digital addiction, whatever it is you've been hiding behind, it's let's get to what's going on underneath, and let's start to peel back the layers and create more expansion in
uh,
terms of, and that expansion is longevity. And as long as you're walking in the path of healing, because people start to think that this is such a big undertaking, and it's, oh God, therapy's too much, it brings up, too much of my stuff. It's like, as long as you're walking in the path of healing, and you're moving the needle, there's no destination that you have to arrive at. Are you walking in the path of healing? Because if you continue to do that, layer by layer, there's an expansion, there's more awareness, there's more getting in touch with, oh, I know now why I do what I do. But then you bring it to somebody, because now somebody can help you. We identify, we get aware. What do I do with this now? I've
yeah,
examined my patterns. I recognize that I show up like this. I recognize these are the areas that I get stuck in. What do I do with it? How do I,
right.
um, you know, how do I get relief and release from it? Number one, how do I shift it? And one of the biggest things, and that's for you, I think you too, it's habituation. You repeatedly do something over and over again and expose yourself to an external stimuli that is the stressor, whatever it may be. And let's say you have social anxiety. And that's going to affect you with relationships. We're talking about relationships and recovery, right? And so
Who
if you
doesn't
keep,
have social anxiety in early recovery? I
what'd you
don't.
say?
Who doesn't have social
I,
anxiety?
I mean, literally, I think you're a unicorn if you don't have social anxiety in early recovery. That's been my experience. And I'm like a natural researcher. I will like ask people in groups throughout the years. I'm like, how many people in here do not have social anxiety? And you will literally, and I'm like, honestly, and people will raise their hand. I do that. And I also found, this is just an interesting side note. How many people in here are left-handed? If you could raise your hand. Almost a lot of people that, and I'm doing my own research, like on my own, because I'm like naturally like a researcher, and a lot of people are left-handed in recovery. So I'm just like, ooh, that's another thing to notate. But the social anxiety is, you feel like a raw nerve trying to socialize, but you need attachments, and safe attachments, and hopefully your sponsor becomes a safe attachment in the beginning. You might not get it right away. I had 7
Had a,
sponsors.
my first one was amazing. Then I had a few, rough
I had
experiences.
7. I had 7. I'm not recommending my path to other people. I'm not saying go have 7, but,
That took me like a year to undo some of the trauma and I had 10 years in recovery at the time.
no.
It was very much not a healthy. So, that's the one thing we talked about in our last live too, is there are the people that are like us that have
Mhm.
like pure intentions, good hearts, are mindful, awake. And then there's a lot of people that are sick, right? And we expect sometimes in relations, all relationships in recovery, like as with people like you and I who came in like, woohoo, I love the world, I'm born again.
Yeah.
Let me love everybody. Like that's not where everyone's at too. And that's a sad thing to learn and realize, but it's the real world and it's life. And
It
it's
is, and the other thing is that a lot of people feel it's really hard to get sober and stay sober. I just wanna throw that out there, and I congratulate and applaud everybody that has made a choice to do that, to not self-medicate, and sometimes people feel like that's enough, and they feel like this is good, and then when there's people that are not conscious, sick, not well, meaning unaware of their unhealthy behaviors or dynamics or unconscious things that they're projecting, and their inability to create healthy interpersonal relationships with people. And what I call that, I sometimes I call people wounded infectors. And
Mhm.
I don't mean that in a bad way. I mean,
Not a shaming way, but just a
not, and it's not about shaming. It's about, okay, what I'm recognizing, examining my patterns. If I continue to have issues in relationships in terms of in terms of reacting and not responding, maybe I need to take a look at that.
yeah.
And really start to understand, oh wow, maybe I'm insecure. Maybe I'm scared of something. Maybe I have unresolved trauma. Maybe, I'm reenacting this stuff that's in my subconscious, because I always say the issues are in the tissues.
Yeah, true.
The issues are in the tissues. And that's why
One of my favorite songs by Adele, Cry Your Heart Out, Clean Your Face. When you're in doubt, go at your own pace.
exactly. And so, but we have to understand examining our patterns, right? Becoming more aware of our internal world, which is called interoception. What's going on inside of me? And in the IFS framework, I talk about we all have different parts. We have a confident part, we have an anxious part, we have a doer part, that's hypervigilant doer, get things done part. We have a shame part.
I have all
What?
those parts.
And we all do, but people are like, some people have referred, they're like, you're doing this thing where I feel like it's a psychological theater. And I said, but everybody has these different parts. The
Right.
goal is integration. If I try to exile a part of me and I try to say, ooh, I don't like that anxious part showing up right
It's
now,
gonna come out another way.
it's going to come out another way. So wait a minute. What is this anxiety trying to tell me? Why am I getting anxious? There's
My anxiety in relationship was telling me get the hell out, and I wasn't listening to it.
It was a warning bell, and I know you and I have discussed, one of the funniest things you said to me is like, "I got a little bit of resentment against these attachment styles."
I hate the attachment styles currently.
And that's okay, but here's the thing.
I got over it from overhearing it for a long time, and
I
I
get it. It gets played out. It gets played
well,
out.
and it was just my personal experience with it, which I shared with you, which I don't isn't
Yeah.
appropriate for LinkedIn, but
No.
because we're on LinkedIn, Facebook, and we're on YouTube. But yeah, my own personal thing is like I get triggered when I hear that, and
Absolutely.
down. Like I definitely in some of our conversations, I run secure attachment, but
For
when
sure.
certain situations, like it's this like you call it the dance, right?
But yeah, and it just touching on it in a way where it's people get people are desperately seeking answers.
And
People
it's
want
so many
it
people.
is, and people are desperately seeking answers, and they want an answer, and they're like, "Oh, now that makes sense. Well, I'm not crazy," or "No wonder I was acting that way." So I don't want people to look at it like that this is the answer. This is a piece of the puzzle.
Or a label.
It's not a label. It's how do I show up generally in the context of romantic relationships? Which part? So to what?
And and friendships and
And
partnerships. All of
right, and so it's interesting because the way I show up in friendships is a little different than the way I show up in romantic relationships, and that's different, and it's very fluid. It's not that people fit neatly into a box, and it's just a good just to understand, oh, so relationally, I have a tendency to show up this way, but main point, it really depends on who you pair with. Friendship wise, romantic relationship wise, it can flip its side. You can generally be a certain way, and then you can get thrown for a loop when you end up mismatched with an attachment style that's not the right fit for you.
it's actually hysterical. And as you're saying that, it's bringing up in my personal recovery journey, God has sent me, or divine has sent me people that don't love to have a lot of relationships, don't like to be close to a lot of people, but want to be close to me.
Oh my God, that's the story of my life. And then we feel special because we're like,
Oh, special.
oh, I'm the chosen one. Like they don't.
Wonder why they struggle to like be at the place that I'm at. Well, they're not like that with anybody else. So how can they continue to be that way with me? And they've shared that to me. Like, Amanda, you like nudged your way in and nobody gets in, but you got in, and I'm like, woohoo, I'm the lucky.
Because you live out loud, you wear your heart on your sleeve. There's emotionality and openness about you. And so what happens is That's the lost part of themselves. So they have a lost part of themselves that they are like, what happens is their subconscious is drawn to you because they're like, I want some of that. I actually do want to be more in touch with my emotionality. I actually do want to have this rich internal world and be able to express it. But because they're mostly disconnected from their own emotions,
They're scared.
they're scared because they learned a long time ago, there was a message that if you show weakness, vulnerability, you actually talk about real emotions, it's met with rejection, disapproval, engulfment. Insert in whatever your story is, because all of our stories are different. But we all have fear stories. We all have family of origin issues. We all have messages and conditioning. If I was a young girl and I'm going to pretend I was a young boy, because I think with men struggle with it in a different kind of a way. Because like it's a little more socially acceptable for girls to have feelings and talk openly about it. Men, they're raised in a family. I'm a boy. I start crying. I'm upset about something because I'm human and I have a vast array of rich internal world. And it's like, nope, stop, go to your room. Do not. I got a message. And at that age, those young ages where we're being conditioned, and when there's a difference between being conditioned, how you're raised, and also we're very egocentric when we're younger. We think everything means something about us. So if mom and dad are fighting, we think we're bad, we're doing something wrong. If we fall on the sidewalk, we think the sidewalk is mad at us. So then we start to create an interpretation of a behavior or what we're witnessing to mean something about us. Then it starts to form a core belief.
Yeah. And then we can tell stories about every situation and every friendship and every relationship and yeah.
And then the fear stories are a thread that run through it. And then, and I don't care in recovery or not in recovery, we all have stories that we tell ourselves about what we think something may or may not be. And then, there's intuition, but then there's also anxiety. And so people are like, trust your gut. I'm really intuitive. There's a difference.
Yeah. I get confused with sometimes. So I have to sit back and listen. Like, is this my gut or is this my will or is this my anxiety? Like, I'm so in tune at this point that I know it's something telling me something and I have to sit back sometimes. Sometimes I'll know it's a direct hit.
Yeah. Yeah.
But sometimes I need to sit back and be like, what part of me is showing up right now?
Yeah, what part of me is showing up, and just sitting with that and getting clear, because this is my best way to say as a barometer. If it feels kind of clear and it feels like it's usually intuition. If it's very primed with fear, it's usually anxiety, because anxiety lies to us and then it perpetuates a story because your amygdala gets hijacked. When your amygdala gets hijacked, this is a really important point I want to make. When your amygdala gets hijacked, which everybody's does, you go into fight, flight, freeze, fawn,
I
and
think mine's activated currently. So go
and
ahead.
that happens. I hope it's not me doing it.
Oh, no.
Okay.
I'm for like the week.
Oh, well, yeah. Okay. Well, that happens,
Going on. So
Well, when you have so many things going on, you end up in the sympathetic nervous system. And when you stay in your sympathetic nervous system too long, that's a warning. I got to do more parasympathetic activities. I have to pull back and do some more meditation. I have to pull back and journal. I have to pull back and work out. I have to pull back and rest. Rest and digest is what parasympathetic stands for. And so anybody who stays in the go, 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 do for an extended period of time, amygdala will get hijacked. You'll go into fight, flight, freeze, or fawn. And then your prefrontal cortex goes offline.
Oh, yeah.
We need the prefrontal cortex to modulate emotions in order to create emotional regulation, because what happens is you stay in sympathetic too long, cortisol, adrenaline, hormones start shooting out in your body. So you end up in that state. So the quickest way to bring your prefrontal cortex back online, I do this with a lot of clients, is spell your first, middle, and last name from the back all the way to the front slowly. It's not about getting it right. It's about engaging in a medium strength cognitive task. It forces your prefrontal cortex to come back online because you cannot.
I do it in my head right now. It's not the easiest.
It's not, and it's not about getting it right, but you cannot do that exercise without your prefrontal cortex, without using it. So it forces it back online.
That's
And then
that.
it's, and there's these little tips, right? And so obviously breathing, taking a couple of seconds to take, the vocal exhale that vibrates in your throat is a somatic breath. And it's a 8 count where it vibrates through here. So I always kind of do, even Dr. Huberman, I've been doing this for years. I saw it on Dr. Huberman, but it's a double inhale, holding at the top for 2, 3, 1, and a slow vocal exhale. Ah.
Yeah, that feels good.
And I do this a couple of times with my clients and they start laughing and they feel silly. And I said, I know. I said, but feeling that, and then even saying, that's why people say Om in yoga. Om or Vu. I like to do an 8 count with Vu because that is activating parasympathetic. So whenever prefrontal cortex goes online and you're in sympathetic and your brain is hijacked, even in relationships, in interactions between people, uh, if you're sympathetic and you're go, 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 we got to bring the prefrontal cortex back online and we have to engage in parasympathetic activities. And if we continue to do that, and then you alternate between sympathetic, parasympathetic, sympathetic, parasympathetic, then you become more ventral vagal. And what that means is you're toning the ventral vagal muscle. And that's what makes you feel chilled out and relaxed. And sort of, even if I'm engaging in sympathetic activities, I can have high energy, but feel calm because my amygdala is not hijacked.
Yes, it's definitely can get hijacked. And then like I shared with you, my day was like complete shutdown yesterday and haven't had one of those in a long time. And I usually take one on weekend days here and there, but I just haven't done it for
your body, like I said, your body starts to collect issues are in your tissues. It's saying rest, and that's a sympathetic activity. Resting, sleeping, taking a nap, sleep hygiene, catching up on sleep, all of that is really, really important in terms of resetting your nervous system.
Yeah, absolutely. So we are talking about relationships. We're talking about ways to cope with different strategies through Esin's experience. And she calls herself a nerd in this area, but it's
I love it.
The nerd in the best possible, and I love nerds, but the nerd in the best possible way of healing and therapeutic modalities. So if you have any question regarding personal relationships, whether it be friendships in recovery, relationships in recovery, working relationships, I know Blake has one that's a little bit in a different direction I want to go. So if we do on it, we'll come back to the more personal stuff.
Okay.
Have you heard about attachment theories show up in organizational work relationships?
Oh my God, absolutely.
Read a study recently that detailed how people develop separate attachment relationship with employees or coworkers than they may feel experience in their personal life. For example, they could be anxious in romantic relationships, but avoidant and secure in work relationships.
Absolutely. And that's kind of what we discussed a little earlier, that A, it depends on who you pair with. B, it depends on, you may be more secure in the workplace in your relationships, and you may be more anxious in romantic relationships, and you may be more avoidant in personal friendships. So it's very, very fluid. So absolutely,
Don't you think it's also to do with like the person and people that it is, like depending on their attachment to? That's just been my experience.
It's also, who are the players? Who are the players in the organization? Who are the cast of characters that you're connecting with? If you're connecting with somebody whose attachment style is a better fit for you, you're going to end up feeling more secure in that attachment. And if you're connecting with somebody who tends to be really avoidant and shut down, anybody's going to get anxious connecting with that person. They're going to feel disconnected. But it's the individual, it's the person. So and it's fluid. It changes. It's in I actually weirdly tend to be a little more avoidant in friendships. live out loud. Actually, I wouldn't say avoidant. I would say secure in friendships. So
Picky in particular at this age.
yeah,
When you're in your 40s, you just don't have time for the BS anymore. Like, you know
yeah,
where and who you feel like you could invest in. You kind of like feel them out, gauge them out. And if you want to take it a step further, like we have, you do. And that takes time for people like us. Like,
yeah.
I'm trusting and open, and I follow my intuition and gut with that. And I've been way too trusting, way too open, and way too forgiving, and let like everybody in, to where I've learned now that like, no, I got to protect that space and like
And
just let certain people in,
I
you know?
think I think that's discernment, and I think that that's wonderful. And one of the things, and I'm also hearing one of the things that like you're touching on, even with what Blake said, boundaries. And so boundaries are a way of keeping somebody in our life, and there's a symbiotic relationship between self-worth and boundaries. And so a boundary, people think that it's this like tough, don't ever talk to me like that again. Do not ever do that. A boundary starts with an internal boundary. It starts with, I am going to make a deal with myself. I am going to have a contract between me and me. So the internal boundary can be like, I don't, if I feel disrespected in an interpersonal dynamic, friendship, romantic relationship, boss, supervisor, whatever relationship it is, workplace relationship, colleague, I'm going to let the person know, hey, when you speak to me like that, I feel really disrespected. And if would you be willing to take a look at that and kind of pause? It feels very reactive, and I would really like for you to respond to me, because when you speak to me that way, I feel disrespected. And if you continue to do that, I'm going to distance myself from you. So I give that conversation, then I'm allowing that person enough space to sort of hopefully respect that boundary. So because I want to keep them in my life. And
Right.
and then if they don't, then my internal boundary. So an internal boundary is what I have, a contract and a promise and a decision that I've made. And the external boundary is the execution of that boundary. And so that
Absolutely.
is basically, if you disrespect me, you lose contact. You lose access to me.
And you know that Blake's, I told you he's in his PsyD program,
Yes.
for organizational psychology. So his
I
question,
was gonna do that. Industrial organizational psychology was the original master's that I was gonna do. I love it. So it's such a great question, because you're gonna see that in the workplaces. And if you're gonna be working in that sort of context in terms of helping people get along better, helping understand, hierarchies and power dynamics that are going on. Attachment styles play a part, because an attachment style is just a little bit of a template in terms of how you show up relationally. That's it.
right?
There's so many other factors. What are your patterns? What is your conditioning? What is your unresolved traumas? What are the fear stories you tell yourself? Also, context matters. What is currently going on in your life right now that may be affecting how you show up? If I'm having a stressful week where I'm bombarded, I'm going to show up different relationally, because context matters.
Absolutely. I'm very aware that this week I've shown up very differently than I tend
And
to.
and what
I'm
if you were
aware of
okay with that? What if you got okay with that?
I
Because
made
you're
I made an amends
okay.
where I said, "Hey, if I've come across like a little bit off this week, please understand that I'm going through a lot, and I don't
Yeah.
need to take it out on you." Or I've like set boundaries where I feel like I need support.
Yeah.
And just letting people know that like are checking on me, that are used to hearing from me like multiple times a day, like, "Hey, I'm just kind of like taking a day."
Yeah.
Because that's just what I need. And when I don't feel right myself, I have to I have to be on, right? So if I have to be on to go to London next week, and I have to be on for my kids, I have to nurture myself, right? And
Yeah.
balance the professional Amanda, the personal recovery me, the relationship me, the mom me, the friend
Mhm.
me. Like, that's a lot of
It's
things.
a lot of things to juggle. It's a lot of things to juggle, and so it's that whole thing, if you don't put your own mask on first, you're not of benefit to anyone else. And so, yeah, because of the context, you may behave in ways that are not typically you. And so That's good. You're taking accountability. That's all we can ask. And also accepting this is how I'm showing up this week and it's okay. And if I inadvertently offend somebody or if I become reactive because I am juggling all these balls up in the air, I take accountability for it and I apologize. And if I have this code with one of my friends. I said, there are days when I don't want to talk. Like I need the day to decompress and put on a face mask and go cold plunging. And I don't want to have any energetic exchanges. It's nothing personal. It's because I talk to people for a living, number one. Number two, there's so many energetic exchanges throughout the day, which are beautiful and wonderful, and I love them. But in order to be able to be present and attuned to my clients and to the people in my life, I text her D, and D stands for decompressing day.
I love that.
So
Yeah, because I'm in a few group texts with like the most amazing people and amazing support system that I'm usually like, gung ho right there.
Yeah.
Even just opening them this week has been exhausting for me and been actually energy draining when it's like all beautiful, love flowing stuff, but
Absolutely.
like I'm not available to show up for it this week.
And that's okay. And so it's like, you say, hey, would it be okay if the days or the weeks that I'm juggling like a lot of tasks and I'm getting ready to show up for something that's really important to me and I want to be show up as the best version of myself. If I text you whatever it is, D, that I'm just decompressing, still love you. Nothing, this doesn't affect our relationship. I'm okay. I'm not, but I need to not have that much energetic output right now and an energetic exchange. And I still love you. And, I'm just doing this for self-care. You can do self-care day. You can text D.
This is a good overall question. There's a lot of so we're on LinkedIn, we're on Facebook, and we're on YouTube on this stream. So, for the LinkedIn, especially, and really all of them, but like what, for people that struggle with, bringing personal into work or bringing work into personal, like what do you recommend for that? I think that's something really great that could be a good takeaway for a lot of people. I sometimes do it beautifully, sometimes I don't.
We will never do anything eloquently all of the time because I always say this, you are what you do most of the time.
Right.
Not all of the time. We need to leave room for error. We have learning curves. I think it's important. What?
We're human. We're not machine.
We're human. And it's like, take attachment styles out of it. Take recovery out of it. We're human. And human beings are built a certain way and we're built very similarly. We have a rich internal world. Whether you show it or not, it's there. Whether you're connected to it or not, it's there. And so in order for those things not to bleed into each other, I think it's open communication, having a therapist or somebody else that you can go and process with, or a trusted friend, to be like, I'm feeling really resentful about so-and-so in my workplace and blah, 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 I think is really, really helpful. And just, it's so easy for me to just say, like, this is your work box and this is your personal box, but they all intersect with one another. So to leave your problems at the door, for me, it's really important that I'm attuned and connected to my clients, that I am with them, regardless of a million things that I have going on in my own life, my own personal life. And so I talk about it with a trusted friend. I get it out. I have a venting session. I also tell people to have a 1-hour worry session. I want you to worry and just really take it to the max and get as upset as you want. And then that's it. You end it. That's it. That was my worry time.
And in the worry session, is there like writing including in that? Like
absolutely. And the worry time can be by yourself. It can be venting to a friend. I encourage stream of consciousness writing and just journaling, like I'm really pissed off right now and I'm getting angry and, and I'm feeling really overwhelmed and I feel slighted and I don't know why, but I am, I'm starting to build a resentment against this person and I don't feel like I'm being treated fairly, or I'm feeling overwhelmed. I feel like I'm being pulled in all these different directions, whatever it is. But if you designate that worry time and you expand it to the max, your body actually gets sick of it.
That's great.
And so you designate worry and even anger, and let the anger about it come out.
Yeah, no, I love that. And like we went to the Smash Room. That was a great.
And that's
We were tearing it up.
and that right.
We're like we let it loose, and like that stuff is like, you know, what much more on like a deep level. But like what you're saying is something like a smaller version of what we can do, like taking an hour, dedicating it to that, owning it, calling it that, and letting it all out. Then
Yeah. This
no,
is my venting. This is my, and I have a friend I do this with. I'm like, I'm just going to vent. And I say like everything and anything on my mind. And it's like, I want to do this because I don't want to be reactive to somebody. I don't want to bring that into the workplace. Something has upset me in the workplace, and now I'm discussing it in my personal life. Or something happens in my personal life, and now I have to show up to a meeting, or I have to show up, but I'm dysregulated. We get dysregulated.
And in our company, like we all have personal relationships. We're all really close, and we also have professional boundaries. So there is that, but there is a lot of times where it overlaps. Like what's, you know, what is appropriate to talk about like professionally. And I definitely have depended on my team many times throughout the time of being open for things that I've gone through personally, like divorce, breakup, friendship issues. Like they've been a piece, but like when do you know, I have my therapy once a week. I do it on Tuesdays at 2:30. So it's kind of like in the middle of the week.
Yeah.
And it's really good timing for me to be like, all right, this is me time for somebody that's like outside of all this.
Yeah.
And external processor.
Yes.
Learning how to do more internal, like also do it between me and my spiritual time.
Yep.
Like I like to talk about things. That's how I process through them. I process through them out loud, and other people are internal processors. Me being so externally processing, it's hard for other people to, you know.
Yeah, I think with that is that, you know, we can only get so far cognitively. And so there's an element of power to cognitive processing and getting stuff out. And some people are internalizers, but also doing the, what does this feel like in my body stuff that we hear all the time. It's somatic stuff. It feels tight. There's a tightness in my chest. Being in that, and I've actually had people hold where they feel the anxiety, or hold where the anxious part is showing up, or where the overwhelmed part is showing up. And I go, what are you noticing now? They're like, it feels like it's softer. I'm like, okay, just stay with that part and just allow it to, and there's a holding of it, and there's a witnessing of it, and you're having a co-witnessing, because I'm witnessing and I'm saying your anxiety and because whenever it goes to logic and emotion's always going to win.
Totally. Mine's generally my gut. I feel it.
Yeah.
Really, really heavy. Then it goes to the heart and the gut.
So you hold your heart and your gut, and you sit with that, and there's something healing about that touch, and somebody being there with you and just being like, you're welcome here. You're allowed to stay here. It makes so much sense that this would be showing up in your body, and you are allowed to feel this. And I'm co-witnessing it with you.
I'm like totally in this with you right now.
Right? Let's just be in this and just allow yourself to just feel it. Keep your hand, if it shows up in your heart, wherever it's showing up in your body, just let it
I have it on my belly. You just can't see it.
Yep. So just be with that part and hold that part and just be with it and allow it to give it its full expression, that it has a right to be here. It deserves to be here. It's showing up for a reason. Off there, again, no bad parts. But if we don't witness this part and we don't sit with this part, it will start to dominate. And what we want to do is understand it, send it loving compassion, be with that part. And oftentimes you co-regulate, right? So you co-regulate with somebody where they are witnessing and co-suffering with you, or allowing yourself to feel that. Also, havening is another method, which is basically, I have people, it's weird with this little weird new thing that I got where I'm a phone operator, but it's really kind of loving on yourself and just sort of giving yourself this,
like I see you rocking. I'm a big rocker for comfort.
It's a rocker, or you can also go inward here where you're holding. It's about like right.
Live thing.
Yeah, right. Oh my God, sometimes when I get nervous, I put my hands on my armpits and I smell them like this. Yeah, yeah. I used to do that. Superstar.
It was one of my favorites ever.
Favorite, but literally, I'm gonna move my hair back so we can actually show it. But it's sort of a grabbing of right here, and you're just breathe into it, and it's a holding. And you're just sort of holding that. It's a containment, but you're still allowing yourself to feel it. But there is a containment of holding it and being with that emotion that shows up in your body. Whenever it's logic versus emotion, emotion will always win. So you can read as many self-help books and cognitively process as much as you want. You have to get into the feeling.
Question though. Someone who's not emotionally based and not in touch with their emotions and avoidant and is more in tune with, what did you say the two things are?
In terms of?
We said emotional, or which emotional?
Whenever it goes to logic versus emotion, emotion wins.
A logic-based person.
So usually a lot
out of emotion.
Well, say that last part.
Logic, self-dominant, talk itself out of emotion. And
yes, absolutely. It's a protector.
Because I'm all emotion based, and like
okay. So logic is usually left brain, and left brain is pragmatic, protocol oriented, get things done, logical. Right brain is birthplace of creativity, emotional resonance, emotionality. A healthy brain vacillates between the two. The person who is so left brain, intellectualization is armor. And intellectualization is the ability to out logic emotion, but all you're doing is suppressing the emotion, pushing the emotion down, and disconnecting from the emotion. And most of the people, not all, that are very left brain, and I can be very left brain. I can use intellectualization as armor. I can do that, but then I can move into feeling it. But I think that, again, emotion will win over logic, but most of the people who tend to be very left brain and pragmatic and protocol oriented and very logical and very matter of fact and seem like emotionless and, are pushing down, and they learned how to do that a long time ago and are able to disassociate. And that means compartmentalize. So they're feeling it. They're not feeling it really because they're outrunning it and they're bypassing it.
Yeah.
So, and they're not connected to their internal world.
It's like we talked about it. If like I tell my partner, like if we don't, if things aren't talked about, and with myself, with yourself, like if it doesn't come out verbally and we don't get through it like ourselves or together, it's going to come out in another way. And that way might not be like something that you want.
No, and you make the best point ever, because it's like a boiling pot, and it's like, when that, those pots where there's that steamer on top of it, the steam is going to come out somewhere. It's looking to come out, and it will come out at inopportune times, and it will come out in a way where it will feel inappropriate to the context, and the reaction or the behavior will feel like it doesn't match what's going on. You'll be like, oh, so are we going to have pizza, or are we going to have, I don't know what we're going to have. We're going to have it,
blow up,
right? Because it's pizza. Because it's an unaddressed, you didn't address, and because it's neck down stuff. This is neck down. Issues in the tissues, neck down, somatic. You have to feel it to heal it. All these things that we've heard, but it's really being with that. And the more you are with that, the more it starts to get soothed, because it's being witnessed and acknowledged. That's also shadow work. That's also inner child work, being with these parts of yourself that are showing up in that moment, from moment to moment, and allowing them permission and allowing yourself to witness them. And instead of I can't feel this right now, I have too much to do, I can't allow myself, no, you can, because this is the antidote. This is the antidote.
I love it when my therapist asks me like what, because we've clearly identified the child, the adolescent, and the adult in me, right? And who shows up in which way. When she's like, "What part of it is that in you?" And I want to not be like honest. I'm like, because that's a child part of me that doesn't want to admit this is my adolescent rebellion. Not give a f, wants to get in your face and tell you
Yeah.
like I don't want to own that part of me, but when I do and I acknowledge it, then it's like okay to love.
It's not as potent, and you can say, "It makes so much sense that you would start to get rebellious and your little inner girl would come out, but you know what? She's welcome here."
Yeah,
And
totally,
when you welcome, because it's whatever you resist persists.
totally.
Period, end of story.
And that goes
So
in romantic relationships, personal relationships, friendships, how I show up with my children, how I show up with my kids' fathers, how I show up with my mother and my sister, how I show up with my partnership in business and um,
mhm.
with my colleagues, how I show up in my relationship with my romantic partner. Like all of this pertains to all relationships.
Because it all starts with my relationship with myself and my ability to connect to myself and all parts of myself is what get and the trust that I have in myself and the boundaries that I set in myself, and the boundaries have a symbiotic relationship with self-worth and self-esteem, is all what emanates and how I show up as a mother, as a worker, as a boss, because it all starts with my relationship with myself. And one of the big things I want to, point out, and a lot of times talk about relationships in recovery, is that we choose connection with others over connection with ourselves.
Oftentimes, yeah.
And because a lot of times when we first get sober, we're like desperate and open and we want to make friends and we're this raw nerve, whatever your story is. The bottom line is that there's still a lot of shame going on, which everybody has. And so we're going to work on I call it the exorcism of shame and unburdening the shame parts, right? When you start to unburden a lot of these parts through IFS, that's how I help people unburden. Then another part is there's other parts underneath here that have been exiled and repressed for such a long time that if you don't unburden the wounded part, the shame part doesn't come up because it's been buried. And when these parts take over, they're just a part taking over. Our job is to unblend, which is we'll ask if that part would be willing to step back for a second so I can actually be in self. And when you are in self energy, which in IFS is called core self, is connected to your higher power or your divine power, or you are compassionate, you are courageous, you are confident, you are calm, you are creative, and that's a barometer to know I'm being led more with self energy as opposed to self will.
Totally.
And so again, everything comes back down to your relationship with yourself, because if I can actually be and tend to the parts of myself that are showing up, and I keep the internal boundaries that I've set with myself, then I have built more trust in myself. Then I have had a symbiotic relationship between keeping those boundaries. Now my self-worth is increased.
When
And
you
there,
hold on to touch on that,
yeah,
when you realize that you let yourself down and crossed your own boundaries and sacrificed yourself, that is very hard to
it is. It's really,
sad because it's like I let myself down.
but
More
that's, but
so
that,
more than that for me today,
no,
that I let myself down hurts much more. And I grieve that depth much harder than I do like someone else letting me down, because I feel like parts of me feel like I should know better, or because
right. But is that the perfectionistic part coming up that you have to show up perfectly all the time?
that's the like shame and like
So the shame, I know better than this. I shouldn't have behaved that way. And it's
I,
like,
I'm a lover, and when you're open and a lover, you're gonna get hurt.
you're, and here's the thing. Nobody comes out unscathed. Nobody. Everybody will get hurt. Everybody, and I say the three certainties in this life is pain and being hurt, and suffering is optional, but it's going to happen. Uncertainty and always doing the work. Those are the three. When you accept that and you understand that it's uncertain for everybody, everybody is going to get hurt and let down, even if people have great intentions. And you would just accept that, right? Accept that those, and always doing the work. You stop putting gas in your car is going to break down. You don't change the oil in your car. That's doing the work. Not looking at it like this daunting task. I'm going to continue to work on myself. And the more I work on myself and like heal a different layer or acknowledge a different layer, oh, the shame's coming back up. And now the shame is being directed at me because I should know better. What about having compassion
Yeah, I've had to shift.
for,
I've had to shift,
right?
and then that happens in the healing, and when you learn the lesson that you're meant to learn, or the lessons you're meant to learn from that experience, and transforming that shame of self and let down in self to, okay, this happened for a reason. This is what I learned.
Mhm.
And this is what I learned about myself that is non-negotiable moving forward.
Yes.
I will
Okay.
not let myself down moving forward.
And maybe that was a reaffirmation of your boundary. And it's like, because there's always, we have to leave a little room for error, or we have to leave a little room because we're never going to do it perfectly right. And
And
so I'm letting myself down.
perfect, or try to be perfect. That's exhausting.
It's so exhausting, but we all have a perfectionistic part of us, right? And so it's like, I'm going to falter sometimes. I'm going to say something that I probably shouldn't have said. I might become reactive, but as long as I continue to be accepting of myself, that there's so many different parts of me and that they're all welcome here, then we start to integrate more. And so then it doesn't become a lot of these fragmented parts. It's like the shame parts over here. This is over here. It's about integrating all those parts and unburdening those parts to sort of understand that you have this internal ecosystem inside of you that is this rich internal terrarium, so to speak, or an interiority inside of you.
Right.
And I'm going to allow all of these parts to come up, and I'm going to witness them and be with them. And then and only then can I transform them, one, alchemize them, unburden them, or ask this part to play a different role.
Yeah.
Because all of your parts are there for a reason. When
Yeah.
your anxious part comes,
They
they protect you, they warn you if there's danger, they get you to perform,
yeah.
they get you to show up, right? So there's no bad parts. It's just that sometimes they become maladaptive.
My first few years of my recovery, I could not cry at all. Like legit would be like, God, like I would pray, like, please help me be vulnerable. Please help me cry. Now I am like, everything makes me cry. Be careful what you ask for. But I'd rather be like this than be like my ex-husband actually used to call me the ice princess because I was so shut down.
Yeah. But that happens a lot. That's dorsal. And that's, you
I
know,
wanted to not be that way, but now sometimes I'm like, oh my God, I feel on such a deep level. It's exhausting.
I know. And a lot of people are like, a lot of people that do the deep healing work and they start to really like walk in the path of healing, which I think is become much more common since COVID, because we had a collective trauma.
Totally.
And a lot of people had to sit with themselves, and all of these parts started coming up. They were like, what do I do with this? So they had to bring it to somebody because they didn't realize how much they were hiding behind work or a relationship or this.
Yeah. I was hiding behind family, overdoing goals, just constantly looking for the next thing to attain for my life, my children, my family, that I was so detached from self and who I was as a woman that I woke up and was like, what the F?
I know. And so reconnecting back to your authentic self that's never been lost. It's been there. It just gets buried by the different parts, but it's always there. And so then you start feeling more, and you're not in dorsal, because dorsal's complete shutdown.
Yeah.
You're completely disconnected from your emotions, and you don't feel it, and you feel numb. And it's like,
I lived like that for years and just an autopilot.
And I'm a mush. Like I'll cry at it. Like I was crying at a
now. I'm ready to cry now. I'm ready to cry. Right. Like I'm so emotional now. Like I feel on such a deep level, and it's a beautiful, beautiful.
It is a beautiful thing. And it's like, if we accept the law of impermanence and we accept those 3 tenets, which is that things are going to continue to ebb and flow, even what you feel is constant is change. You're going to, if you get really, really happy, don't get used to that because that's going to shift. If you're feeling really, really anxious, don't get used to that because that's going to shift, because it's the law of impermanence, which is like a Buddhist tenet and a philosophy that is, the people who are the most peaceful inside are the people, because as the Buddha says, attachment is the root of all suffering. It doesn't mean you don't have safe attachments. It doesn't mean that you don't have connections. It just means that your identity is not defined by them and you are not dependent on them in a way where, because your connection with self is solid. Of course, you're human and you're going to be like, oh, I really feel that loss deeply, but I'm going to be okay
Yeah.
because I'm intact.
No matter what, that's one thing for sure. I will feel it. I will hurt. I will go through my stuff. I mean, I had an attachment to my nonprofit, like that became part of my identity. I had attachment to my family as a married woman. I had and now I know that like me, Amanda, will be okay no matter what, whether next level grows, whether I change careers, like I don't have an attachment to
an outcome.
It doesn't define me, but there were many things along the way that define me.
And everybody does that. So it's not about, it's just recognizing, wow, my identity was so intertwined in this, which means I was so attached to it, which means if I lose it, I will suffer immensely. So I have to create inner certainty. Totally. I have to create inner certainty because uncertainty is what exists. I put my best foot forward. I show up as the realest version of me. And I can only do that when I continue to connect to my authentic self and I choose connection with myself over others. That doesn't mean that I don't have close relationships and I don't choose them. It means that I don't self-abandon or self-betray myself in order to please somebody else just so that they like me. And I don't people please. I don't behave in a way where I'm basically like, sure, whatever you want. Of course, I'll do that. And I've done that. And
me too. I've done that and then realizing it after the fact, going, oh my God.
I didn't know I was self-abandoning and self-betraying and whatever. But so then now I gave people the wrong map to connect with me because they connected with an inauthentic version of me. So now other people, when I started like outgrowing codependency and healing that layer, then another layer started coming up. And then
codependency was like one thing. It was like needy on a partner, like is what I believe to be I didn't realize that I was like another kind of codependent in so many ways.
Yeah. And we learn codependency in the recovery community as being an enabler with somebody who's an addict. We learn about codependency and being dependent on another person. And it's like, no, codependency is really, really broad.
It's complex.
It's really, really complex.
I think it is. Look into it because I guarantee that we all identify with some version of it.
Everybody has some version of it. You might not identify with all of it, but the goal is just, creating safe attachments with a version of you that is honest and vulnerable, that you're connecting from your true self and you're not pleasing someone to make sure they like you and you're not
abandoning yourself for that.
And what it means to abandon yourself is you ask me, not you, but let's say somebody asks me to babysit their children. And I have worked from 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. or 8 p.m. And it's not really, I want to do it because I want to be the good friend and I want Esin always shows up, I would love to, but I've had such a long day. I would never used to be able to do anything like that. But if I did babysit at that moment with that short of a notice on that day, I would be self-abandoning.
Totally.
That doesn't mean that I'm not going to have connection with other people. That doesn't mean I don't still show up for other people. I don't become self-centered. I become other-centered, but I am in connection with myself. And so then the connections that I have with people are more authentic and I'm giving them the right map. I'm not giving them the wrong map to my heart. I'm saying, this is what I stand for. This is who I am. These are my limitations. This is what I'm capable of doing. This is what I'm comfortable with. This is what I'm not comfortable with. And I teach people how to treat me. And if you don't want to, then that doesn't work for me.
Exactly.
And
I love that.
It's
Yeah.
okay because I
That's
rather choose me and have me over a connection with someone who's a wrong connection for me because they're not willing to connect with me in my truth.
absolutely. I think on that note, I say that we end this. I feel like we're going to have to do a part 2 of
For
this
sure.
on LinkedIn and on our because we feel like we just like started to scratch the surface and so much. This is so complex.
It is so complex because when I was like relationships and recovery. I got so
So much.
excited.
Yeah, there's so
It's
much, and we flow super well, which we know.
yeah.
I want to thank you. How do people find you, Esin? How can they
Oh,
find
I
you?
wanna I wanna thank you because you're just a little angel, and I'm so, again, grateful because and I just wanna say, like, I'm getting, like, the chills right now. You don't know who you're gonna connect with, and I don't even know I ran into you in a networking event, and it's just because I'm in touch with who I am now, like, I could cry. Um you just connect to who you connect to. Like it's so much more beautiful. Like I don't know why that and when you don't know why, that's God and the universe working in your life. The things that don't make sense, you're like, "Well, where'd that come from?" I can't even pinpoint. Can you pinpoint when it was the moment of connection? I can't. And when it doesn't make sense, that's when it's God or the universe. That's when I know I'm like, because I'm standing in self. And I never did stand in self. It was always about other people. Then you start to connect with people and you end up, it's usually when God or the universe is in your life, is when it doesn't make any sense and stuff just kind of starts happening, is usually like you're not in your own way.
Totally. No, it's authentic, and you and I
Yeah, yeah,
are authentic
absolutely.
from day one, and that's why we've kind of like felt each other out, and and then like I know in my romantic relationship, like our kids went to school together. We walked by each other all the time, and a week before I met him on the app, he saw me and called his best friend and said, "I saw the woman I want to date, the mom I
Yeah.
want to date."
What are the
What
odds of that?
why didn't we see each other before? And like the
Why?
timing.
Yeah,
you
because
and
you
it's
because you come you come in when they come in when they're meant to come in.
Yeah, and I was not open at the moment for anything, but I was still willing to get to know him, and
It,
just like, and if you and I would have maybe come across each other before we were grown to the place, maybe we wouldn't have seen what we see.
no,
Doing, but
no, and I wouldn't have been in self, and I was also in codependent friendships, in a major codependent friendships where I had no room for anybody else.
totally, me too.
So you can find me on eternalwellnesscounseling.com, which is my website. And then I'm on social media, Esin Pinarli, LCSW. I think that there is
You
a
understand.
lower underscore. So it's Esin Pinarli underscore LCSW on social media. And my TikTok's been a work in progress, but I can't, so psyched to do TikTok because that's kind of where I'm going to have some fun. So
It's fun, but
yeah,
it's like a whole nother world.
I
And
know.
get access to this as well. So like my social media girl Yasmin, thank you Yasmin for setting this up.
Thank you,
Um,
Yasmin.
coming on. She cuts it up and we'll tag you in some posts and we'll send you the link to that you can do things you want with it.
Absolutely,
So
I would love it. I would love
part two.
that.
So look forward to part 2, and thank you. Follow me, Amanda Marino Recovery, on Instagram and TikTok, and Amanda Marino on Facebook,
And Next Level Recovery Associates.
and Next Level Recovery. So yeah, all of them are on here. I see Next
Yeah.
Level. I see Amanda. I see Facebook. Blake said one last thing, that you still need to cold plunge together.
Oh, for sure. Please, I would love it. I know we'll either go to Matt Williams' place or I go to Body Therapeutic Architecture, but I would love it.
Yes. All right, love. Thank you so
All
much for your
right.
time.
Thank you so much.
Your time's so valuable. I appreciate it. And I know a lot of us I got a lot out of this. I'm
I'm
sure
so
everyone
I'm so
did.
grateful for being on, and this was a wonderful conversation and can't wait for part 2.
Yes, part 2. All
Part
right.
2.
Bye
Part
for
part
everyone.
2. Part 2. Bye.
Bye.
How do I get out of here, actually? I'm so technologically challenged.